Season 5 of Binge O'Clock Podcast will be discussing The Terror, an AMC show based on the book of the same name. Although The Terror is a fictionalization of real events, the material depicts medical, survival, and supernatural horror, as well as racism, misogyny, gore, and violence. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Binge O'Clock, the podcast where we watch something and then we talk about it. I'm Joy Selden, and I've seen almost everything.
I'm Danielle Ngo, and I've seen almost nothing.
I'm Nella, and maybe the real cocaine bear was the Toonbuck the whole time.
Not the person full of actual cocaine who caused all this mess in the first place.
Maybe. I mean, once you eat a man drunk on cocaine wine, do you not get buzzed? Toonbuck, do you not feel the after effects? Is it, like there's a great episode from Buffy, which we will probably watch at some point, of Spike talking about how he once ate a flower person at Woodstock, and he kept staring at his hand for the whole for like 3 hours.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that just makes me think of What We Do in the Shadows. He was on drugs.
He was on drugs, and now we are on drugs. No, that's 100% how I imagine the Toonbuck right now.
Yes. Now, see, that's something we should watch.
What We Do in the Shadows, yes.
Yes, I haven't seen it.
All right, before we get too far off of the beaten trail, who wants the recap courtesy of Wikipedia?
Joy shall do it.
I got it. I'm doing it. It's already up. I beat you to it, like you were going to actually try and pull it up before. Like it was an actual competition. Okay, friends, we are watching Terror, Season 1, Episode 8, Terror Camp Clear. Off-screen, Hickey lies to another hunting party, telling them that Irving and Farr were murdered by the Netsilik. The other party kills the Netsilik family in retaliation. After they return to camp, a fog rolls in, stoking the men's paranoia about a surprise Netsilik attack. Hickey and Tozer open the camp's armory and distribute weapons without Crozier's permission. Crozier has Good Sir conduct an autopsy on Lieutenant Irving, sees that he had recently eaten seal meat, and deduces that Hickey was responsible for the deaths and is planning a mutiny. He sentences Hickey and Tozier to hang, but the Toonbuck interrupts. The Toonbuck kills many men, but is wounded by a rocket fired by Fitzjames, the real MVP in this episode. In the chaos, Hickey and Tozier rally the mutineers, steal supplies and a sled, and disappear into the fog.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes.
It doesn't say the real MVP. That was just me edifying Wikipedia. I will be submitting my changes later today.
But before all that bad news happens, we open on Fitzjames and Crozier walking along the shale looking for the cairn where Gore's note resides to update the missive. And, this whole scene is so much different than what's in the book. There's never, by this point in the book, Fitzjames and Crozier don't have this rapport. But there is the sense of, like, they are getting along much better. But Fitzjames is still, you kind of don't really get a sense of him. It's really much more from Crozier's point of view, what's going on in his head. And just as a note, the things we discover about Fitzjames wouldn't really come to light until 2010.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, really dives into just a lot of things that aren't adding up with a lot of the well-established but not substantiated claims about who Fitzjames was in life. But we'll get into that.
Yeah, and I love them, walking along. I kind of wonder if the season wasn't 10 episodes, if we would have been able to really give their relationship the time it needed to, like, actually have them bond instead of just, Fitzjames kind of takes over for Crozier while Crozier gets better. And then Fitzjames kind of takes a back seat because he's slowly getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And then Crozier feels better and he kind of gives the reins back to him. And somewhere in all that mess, they ended up becoming friends. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, there is an element to this scene where it feels like we've missed some things between the two captains. where they've come to an accord. Definitely when they start dropping like brother.
Yeah, like they call each other brother, and I'm like, huh.
Wait,
But
where
I mean,
did
you
that
know,
come
like,
from? Yeah.
but I mean, also maybe this is just the show's way of, making a shortcut, right? Like this is in fact why they end up, being sort of this bonded pair by the end of the episode for sure. But, like this is the heart to heart.
Yeah.
That really probably should have been an entire episode to figure out if they're actually the will they, won't they be friends,
Will they, won't they be friends? Wait, Nella, how long does it take them to become friends in the book?
They don't ever really. Like,
Oh,
Crozier has great esteem for Fitzjames, but I wouldn't say that they're friends. He does end up taking a lot of care for Fitzjames in his final moments, which we'll get to in the next episode, of what Crozier does to try to keep Fitzjames alive. But there's, I don't know, there's just not really this actual camaraderie. There's more little snippets of like, well, I'd like to be friendly towards him, like, but it's things like at Carnival, Fitzjames is like, I smuggled one bottle of whiskey and we might as well drink it together at Carnival. But at this point, of course he's going to drink whiskey with you. He's still at the point where the captain will drink whiskey with anybody, you know? And you more see Fitzjames trying to, like, have a convivial relationship with Crozier, but you never really get the sense that it's the same for Crozier at all.
like reciprocated
It's much more of Crozier is the one in charge. He's much older than Fitzjames. And Fitzjames keeps kind of making these little errors, these little, like, mistakes because he's younger. He's trying to keep morale up among the men. You know, Carnival, for example, is like way more of a, this was a mistake from the get-go. How dare we let this happen kind of thing. And yeah, it's a very different vibe. So of course I like how the show does it better.
Well, it also was such a visual medium, like, and like you're not in everybody's head also, which you have in the book. Like you don't have everybody's thoughts.
You're in Crozier's head.
Makes, this makes a lot more sense. I just wonder what would have happened if we had like 12 episodes instead of 10.
Yeah. But again, and also with the book, like Crozier is very different. Crozier is having fever dream connections to the Tombach and the Lady Silence as his psychic ability blooms. And he becomes more and more at one with the world around him. So instead of being like in the show where Crozier, as things get worse, Crozier becomes like this, almost like a pillar of hope in the hopelessness of it all. He's just not going to give up. Like he's just not going to.
It's that line we keep on quoting every time.
Yeah. Yeah, he's made of hope. Whereas in the book, it's just the old world really just starts to melt away from him much more. And I think we see it a little bit in the show because Crozier is wearing more of like the animal skin weatheralls, you know. Meanwhile, Fitzjames is out there in like Gucci boots and like, I don't even know how to describe his outfit elsewise. It's like dying of scurvy, but make it fashion. Like this is what Fitzjames feels like. This is what it feels like to me.
Fitzjames' outfit, we kept staring at it, trying to figure out. We were like, are those boots Gucci?
It's such a style choice. And it's very sleek. It's like, you know, for as filthy as they must all be, he's looking pretty nice, which is hilarious to me.
Well, he's also the guy that was like, hey, we might be at, like stranded on the pack, and we might never see our families again. But dang it, keep your uniform in shape. You know, this is also that guy with his very shiny epaulets.
Get that dirt out from under your fingernails. You know,
yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
Well, and I appreciate the show for giving us more, honestly. Oh, man, am I so happy we don't have that other nonsense with Crozier from the book in the show. Wow.
Oh, sure.
Wow, am I happy about that. Because that all builds to, like, eventually a relationship with Lady Silence, and I am not here for it.
Yeah. But anyway, so the two captains have walked over to what we know of as the Victory Point Cairn, where we later recovery expeditions would find this note, which one part of it is the original note from Lieutenant Graham Gore, and the second part is an update from the 25th of April, 1848, And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I do encourage you to go check it out. I'll probably post it on my Patreon. But this is tantalized people since it was first found. First off, people who have done handwriting analysis are pretty certain that this whole note, even the original note that was deposited by Graham Gore, was written by Fitzjames. There is the fact that it was probably more likely picked up by Irving and brought back to camp for the captains to write a note.
Yeah, it does seem kind of odd that the captains kind of just go off.
But it makes for such a good, fictionally, it makes a great scene. But it's probably
Right.
more
Oh, no, of
likely that Irving was sent to go get it, which people have sort of picked up on as, that's a bit strange because... So it's like we know that there were 2 lieutenants that deposited the note to begin with. It was Graham Gore and I think Le Viscount. And so if Irving was sent to go to this cairn that he had never visited before, not only does it imply that Gore is dead, but some people have even speculated that means the other lieutenant had died by that point. Because they're sending a lieutenant, or he was so sick he was not able to make the 4-mile trip from camp to where the cairn was. But again, like all speculation, it makes for interesting, armchair investigating. The note itself is very rambly. This is another thing that has made people suspect that by the time they are writing this note, their cognitive abilities are damaged by either lead poisoning or scurvy or some other ill. Or even just extreme exhaustion, because it rambles in a very strange way. Like someone's dictating it, but they're losing the thread of their own thought, and there's not enough room on the paper to rewrite it. So I guess we'll just have to make do. And of course, it ends on the note of "and start on tomorrow, 26 for Back's Fish River," and that's it. The note offers so little. That it has tantalized people since it was found. And I do like how it has become, it's such an important artifact to what we know that, of course, you really can't have any sort of fictional representation without centering this note, right?
Right.
And I do like that this note is almost like a catalyst for what we learn about Fitzjames, really.
Which, again, is not in the book because we don't find out this about Fitzjames until 2010 in the book Fitzjames, The Mystery Man of the Franklin Expedition by William Battersby. And what we find out is that he's a bastard. He is the bastard son of Sir James Gambier, who was sent to Brazil as a diplomat. And as the book quotes, he was plainly an extravagant and irresponsible man who borrowed vast sums. At this time in Brazil, the Portuguese royal family had also left Portugal, and they had a reputation, like their court and all like these incredibly high upper class people in Brazil had a massive reputation as being elegant, extravagant, alcohol-fueled, massively sex-fueled, like very promiscuous. And it seems like his father, James Gambier, fit in very well. We know that Fitzjames was shipped back to England and adopted to the Cunningham family. We suspect that his father's wife had the connection to the Cunningham family through her father, so it's sort of arranged for someone to take care of this bastard kid. Because so much effort was put into placing him somewhere, it's very likely that his birth mother was a woman of some social stature, because had she been, we can assume that had she been of a lower class, they would have not felt obligated to take responsibility for the baby. The book teases that, well, maybe, his mother was the queen consort of Portugal, Carlota Joaquina, because she had like 12 bastard children. But the only problem with that is that if she birthed them, she kept them in the family. Like, she would have raised him if she had given birth to him. So it's very unlikely that he's like this lost prince of Portugal.
Lost royalty.
you mentioned this about her, and I was like, where's her story? I want to know more about this.
I mean,
woman.
so she's fascinating. She did end up dying in an insane asylum because she, kept trying to take power. But I mean, she
I was
wasn't
just gonna say it was because she was a woman who
I don't know.
desperately
She was
wanted
also,
to
but she was
have
also,
her voice heard, probably.
an aristocratic woman like Marie Antoinette. She's not this like innocent ingenue
Or like a
know.
Vita.
She was scheming right,
No,
left,
she was
and
she was a
center.
politician.
Yeah, not even
100% a politician. But I
I don't
love
know
that
if you would
it's
call
like,
anyone in the Portuguese royal family this time a politician. I would call them more dilettantes with too
Sure,
much
fair.
money and too much power. But I mean,
but I love the idea that she's like, of course I'm keeping him. Like she
Yeah.
has this like, are you pregnant again? Yeah.
So anyway,
What?
so he is taken back to England. We know that by age 14 he was fluent in Portuguese, which suggests that someone he was raised with who was caring for him was a Portuguese speaker, because nobody spoke Portuguese fluently in
Right.
England, especially in like Hertfordshire, And then he joins the Navy as a teenager. And that's also where we get the story of how he helped the son of Sir John Barrow, which again, I told you my money was
So
on.
that's true, right?
He rescued him from some sort of homosexual molly house. My money is still on that. So the son was George Barrow, who was a chief clerk in the colonial office. He was 32 and unmarried, and he was working in Singapore at the time. Fitzjames helps him out with enough money that George Barrow had to pay him back. And then George Barrow Jr. felt so much obliged to Fitzjames for what he had done. And he writes a letter to the Barrow Jr. It's so that I'm not saying the thing on paper, but I'm
Right.
trying to reassure you that it's taken care of. We don't he skirts around what the difficulty was.
Oh.
He assures him that all documentation about what had happened has now been lost. Right? There's two ways this could go. Was it that George Barrow was under some sort of corruption thing? But it doesn't really make sense based on Fitzjames's position that he would have any hand in saving George Barrow from a corruption charge.
Right.
What's more likely is that it's some sort of matter of honor, or the book straight up says a homosexual incident. And I'm just like, Molly House. I will put money on it.
I keep thinking of Fitzjames as the Mr. Darcy after this point.
Same, girl, same. I knew it in my soul. I said it. What episode? I said it in episode 2 or something, where I was like, Fitzjames did, it was some sort of Wickham scenario, and Fitzjames swooped in and saved the day. And that's why Barrow felt obliged to him. Anyway, so that's, and of course the book is great. It has so much more unpacking of his life and what led him up to, the Franklin expedition. But as the show says, it's all vanity, always has been, and we are at the end of vanity.
Oh, I love that line. Loved it.
Then you are free.
You can find
But
it
it makes
elsewhere.
sense.
Danielle, I am very curious to hear your opinion of Fitzjames after this episode.
Well, he had already won me over.
True.
I think that I started saying I was liking Fitzjames 2 full episodes ago. Right?
I love how offended you are. It's fine. It's fine if you're like, no, I do like him. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was 2 episodes ago or something like that. I can't 100% remember if I'm being honest, but certainly before Carnival. And when was that?
Yeah.
That was 2 episodes ago.
It was.
No, it's such a good, what an amazing gift this additional research into James Fitzjames gave the show, right?
Right.
Dan Simons, bless him, he didn't have any of this information. For all the research he did, none of this was available to him when the book was published in 2007. it's a gift.
Yeah. No, now that I'm hearing more about what the source material was and then what this became, I'm really happy with the Fitzjames that we have, right?
Yes.
Like, I'm happy not only that he's a well-rounded character, but also that they let him have this relationship with Crozier, because then we get to know him better and in turn Crozier, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because Crozier doesn't really rely on other people or share his feelings with that many other people. Even Jobson, we were talking about this. They make eyes at each other, and that's about it.
They do make eyes at each.
He's still the captain, you know.
But this is also
He's
why
not going to
I really
rely
love-
on him emotionally. Sorry, Joy, what was that?
Well, I really love their like weirdly budding friendship, because I think of all the people you could tell this to, Crozier is probably your best option, because Crozier understands more than anyone how like it's hard to come by, favor, and it's hard to nurture that and be rewarded for the work that you do.
Yeah.
Because he's been trying for a very long time, and he's still,
And you're right. He knows what it's like to mingle with this part of society without ever really being accepted by it.
Yeah. And this scene for me is the beginning of the sensation of it. To me, it's the tragedy, right, of realizing too late. Wait, why weren't we friends sooner? Like,
I know.
But I do like you.
Oh.
And I've seen that happen in my life. I've experienced it myself. Especially with people who then pass pretty soon after having that realization, and like you feel that immense loss of what could have been had you just gotten your head out of your ass sooner. Yeah. But we only have this lovely interlude for so long.
For like 6 minutes of screen time.
Because we get back to the camp and shit has hit the fan.
Oh,
my God.
Yes.
Dad went for a walk and you all burned the house down is pretty much what happened. Like,
It was such a long walk. Such a long walk. And in the meantime, I mean, I know this was covered in the summary, but Hickey has just sown mass chaos. Chaos. Because not only did he tell the lie about the Netsilik attacking first and get this troop of Marines out there, which then kill 5 of the Netsilik people. Yeah. Actually, at first, when that was mentioned in the show, I thought that Hickey killed 5 of them. And I was like, whoa, how did that happen? But no, it's actually, it's terrible. Yeah. Then, since he's at camp, he's like sitting around chit-chatting with people and getting more and more and more sympathy over on his side. Because there he is, like, all wrapped up. He's like, oh, Irving is dead. This like, war party came and attacked us. They're never going to help us. Like, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
He spent that entire walk winning people over to his side. It's
100% the Hickey gets to tell his story to everyone before Crozier and the truth get their boots on. It is too late to do at best you're doing damage control, and even then, like, the men are tired, they're starving, they're starting to feel the effects of scurvy and lead poisoning. And now there's fog rolling in, and they are now all the relief of having clear sight lines all around them is now gone. And a part of me is like, they get so absolutely paranoid about the Netsilik attacking that it's like they've forgotten that the Tumbak is out there as well.
Right. When they're like, we need to form a perimeter. We need to arm all the men. Like, blah, 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 blah. I'm like,
and then we have Lieutenant Hodgson saying, because Crozier comes in and he's just, none of this passed the smell test for Crozier. No. Immediately suspicious. This is not what happens here. Like, this is ridiculous. Like,
I feel like every now and then in this podcast episode, I'm just going to go like, dun, dun.
Oh, yeah. But, Hodgson, who was the other hunting party who participated in the massacre of the Netsilik family, says outright, I didn't look for confirmation of something that could only be done by savage men.
Ugh.
Yeah. And Hodgson is the one running around being all mouthing off about how, I have a family member who, had things happen in Victoria, Texas with the Comanche, and 600 people suddenly there were 600 Comanche Braves on the hillside, and they all died. And I'm just like, different people, man.
Right.
Yeah, no,
Right.
like, all I could think about was, like, you never get in England people mistaking, like, the French for the British.
Right.
Like, this is the same sort of level. Like, no, friend. You're in a completely different part of the planet, first off. Second off, you don't actually understand the context of what you're talking about, because guess what? The white man messed around and found out.
Well, yeah, like, it's
Because the Comanche are also a warlike people, and if you mess with the Comanche, they will take you out. And that's exactly what happened.
Just to add the context, the story he is citing of, Victoria, Texas, and how the Comanche went on the warpath. Yes, that is something that happened. After the second president of the Republic of Texas, Lamar, screwed the Comanche over and, like, killed a whole bunch of them and took others captive, and then sent out one captive to the other Comanche bands being like, okay, now really, like, acquiesce to our demands. The Comanche don't have a central government, sir. And all you did was piss off one of their leaders who was just like, okay, no, really, they don't keep their promises and they attacked us. Who wants to attack back? Let's go raiding. And
who's got time?
It is estimated that 1,000 Comanche rode to pretty much, I mean, you read about it and it's just like, oh, so it's like Sherman's March to the Sea. I see. Okay. Got it. And, like, we can sit here and be like, look, there were people who were killed in this because some guy in charge decided he wanted to continue his genocidal, like, movement against various Native Indigenous tribes, starting
the
with
manifest destiny of the
starting with the
nonsense.
displaced Cherokee, and then decided to walk around and find out with the Comanche. Like, like he got cocky, like trying to push all the Cherokee out, and then he thought that he could win over the Comanche.
No, but,
And
like, my
people-
favorite part about that story also is it's like, again, you are talking about two different people. So it was literally one dude being like, the Cherokee, they were so easy to shove out or whatever. I'm sure in his own brain he was saying
because they had already, you have people who are coming from a completely different part of the country. The first president had been raised by a Cherokee family, had been working, we can talk about Sam Houston forever and that fascinating person that is, really complicated, but he was trying to work out better treaties and secure land for at least his indigenous people within Indian territory. But because of the stupid rules of the Republic of Texas, he could only be president for one term. And then the second guy who came in was like, no, we're going to throw all that out the window and we're going to, like, commit genocide. Because that seems like a great idea.
I can't wait for you to say more about this on your YouTube channel. I hope you make a whole video.
Look, do I want to make the entire state of Texas my enemy? No.
Yeah.
Will
okay,
they probably become my enemy? Yes. I don't know.
Fair.
Look, I'm a New Yorker.
The state of the world being what it is.
My state has its own sordid, awful history from New Amsterdam up until the current age. We made a lot of money off of enslaved people. We made a lot of money off of the subjugation of immigrants and other people. We are a deeply unequitable capitalistic city. Mm-hmm. But I'm still going to talk about Texas.
As
what
you should.
And no.
And so, we have Crozier trying to sort of restore some kind of order to everything and basically being like, well, we have to go investigate.
Well, yes, he's playing world's greatest detective, and it's awesome.
I mean, it's so awesome, but it's too late. It's so too late to
I
get
don't
this
know.
cat back in the bag.
You don't think that if they weren't interrupted at the end, he could have won a bunch of people over? I think he could have.
I mean, it's so hard. It's so hard to know, but Hickey surviving is definitely the worst case scenario.
Oh, yeah. Wait, but before we talk about that, should we talk about the investigation?
We need to talk about NCIS King William's Land,
Yes.
okay? Because it's really good.
It's so good. It's so good. I mean, beginning with like what you said earlier, where this doesn't pass the smell test immediately. And the first thing that Francis and then Fitzjames kind of jumps on the wagon as well says is like, hold on. What evidence do you have? Were their weapons drawn? Were their clothes covered in blood? And Hodgson's like, I don't know.
I wasn't looking too closely.
And Francis and James are like, okay, and to confirm, Hickey's the only one who saw this attack, and Hodgson's like, yeah. And so Francis decides that they need to go and inspect the scene of the crime. We're going to go look at the bodies, and we're going to go and look at where Irving and Barr died.
Yeah, he leaves. I believe in this, he leaves Fitzjames behind, though, because,
yes.
Now things are getting out of control. We need someone in command. But, remember, Fitzjames isn't doing too good for himself.
No.
He is visibly slowing down. He's not doing well. So he takes Good Sir, he takes Lady Silence, and he takes Blanky.
And Hickey
Yay,
also.
team.
And Hickey, of course, to explain what happened here. While they're there, of course, it's a devastating scene to see. Especially when you keep in mind, like, how vilely many Inuit were spoken of in this time period, especially in the Nitsilic, reading through the accounts of, say, like Dr. Ray, who did have a relatively positive relationship with many Inuit communities, but he was not as familiar with the Nitsilic, and even in his own writing was like, oh, I guess they're not as trustworthy as the others, because of just like they would forage for supplies they would find, and they would take things that, weren't theirs. But it's just like, you're in the Arctic. If you can use it to survive, you should take it. If there's anything I've learned from reading way too much apocalyptic fiction, if you find it, it is yours.
Always take the potato.
Always take the potato. And it is just heartbreaking, because these, as it was said in one of the first episodes, these people are too busy trying to survive to go on a warpath.
Right.
These are not the kind of societies and people you think they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no,
And
I always love that conversation, not to totally derail, but it always reminds me of one of my favorite movies, Contagion, where it's like, so do you think somebody weaponized the common cold? And it's like, we don't have to do that. The birds are already doing that for you.
Yeah.
It always feels like that moment of like, they're too busy with their own survival to bother with killing you.
Oh, sure,
They
yeah.
are just looking for food and shelter and warmth. And
Yeah. And it's just,
And listen,
it's just a tragedy.
it's a tragedy, and not for nothing, Hickey really, really attempted to sell this, because where we left off at the end of the last episode, you just see Hickey because he's smart. He took off his clothing so he isn't covered in blood, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just see him like half naked, stamping his feet in the snow. And in this episode, we find out that after stabbing the two men, he didn't stop there. He mutilated them terribly, like painted their blood on rocks and tried to make it out to be this, quote, savage scene. And so that he could sell the story a little bit better, right?
Exactly.
And it's
And then when they go to actually see the Nitsilic family, it's like 3 older men,
also
and a woman and a child.
they're that B, half of them are face down and shot in the back.
Yeah.
It's like, were they attacking you or were they running away?
NCIS King William's Land. Anyway,
And of course, Lady Silence has a huge moment of mourning because she knew these people.
they weren't family, but she knew them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And these are small communities. Every person matters in a place where groups are that small. So they take a bag back with them, which will become narratively important in a moment.
Yes.
And once they get back, honestly, oh man, what's been happening back at camp though? Because Fitzjames comes running out with all of Lady Silence's things in the bag, and once again, Fitzjames is like, she can't be here. Only this time, it's not because he's annoyed at her, because he knows that it is not safe for her. So
No.
what a good character note. How we have grown. Like
Right.
you're not kicking her out because you're done with her. You're kicking her out because it's just like, you need to not be here for your own safety.
Because she will literally die if she walks into camp.
I also love that this slots right in with Fitzjames, man of action, right? It's like, oh, everything's falling apart at camp. People have guns, they shouldn't have guns. What did I do? I stepped in, I stopped more guns from going out. What do I do now? Get her stuff and run into the fog, right?
So what happens is, while the captain and his loyalists have stepped away from camp, Fitzjames is distracted. He is stripping down, and this is where we see Chekhov's bullet wound, the size of a cherry stone. His wounds are reopening. He is not doing well. During this scene, the Whisper network has been expanding, and the paranoia is growing. And like, it has gotten into Tozier's head, into other people's head of, we have to hand out guns despite it being in direct violation of the captain's orders. And we just need to step up and do it. We shouldn't even try to get permission from the other captain.
I mean, they win over Little, which is...
And, Edward Little, is a direct answer to Crozier. He was a lieutenant on the Terror. And he's just also overwhelmed by the paranoia. He's not thinking straight, and he's unable to get command of the situation. He's not the captain. And, this is where, in so many of these stories dealing with naval hierarchy, there's been a destruction to the chain of command and to the illusion of command. Because now people are starting to look around, and you're starting to count how many of there are us versus them.
So Whisper Network, they get Little, and they also scare poor Henry.
Oh, and he goes to Pegler. Always listen to the old Stewarts.
The elder queers have you in hand.
Yeah, look, I know you're dying, but this isn't as bad as you think it is. You could turn around in a day. And that is the true thing about scurvy, is that, I'm actually reading one of the books about the history of scurvy and how the cure was discovered. And it is truly horrifying how on death's door you could be, and then just get enough vitamin C, and 2 days later you are, there's still healing you have to do, but you are otherwise, revived.
Oh. Wait, I have a question, though.
Yeah.
So, when Bridgens, right? That's his name?
Yeah.
When Bridgens assures him and says, you're not that far in, these are early signs, etc., right? But, what would they've been able to find out there that would have been able to cure him?
Fresh meat.
Really? That is enough vitamin C?
Uncooked fresh meat, especially the livers. Not of polar bears, that's too much vitamin A, but livers of elk or caribou, seal, or even the blubber. That's why the Inuit very rarely, if ever, suffer scurvy. They have a diet of raw meat. Yeah. And raw meat has the vitamin C necessary. The way vitamin C works is you need to maintain having about 500 milligrams of vitamin C a day, give or take, depending on your own dietary needs, because your body's only really able to use 50 milligrams of that per day. But you need to top it off so that your body has it so it can use it. We are so inefficient at processing vitamin C. It's kind of wild, actually. Who made us? I have notes, I have comments, and I have critiques. Between that and our lower backs, you really did us in on this one. So that's why very often, God, scurvy really was a death sentence in the golden age of sail, because you were press ganging the dissolute poor who already did not have the kind of diet that really gave them much access to fresh fruits, vegetables, and real meat. And then you're shoving them on overcrowded ships because they would overcrowd the ships knowing that about 50% of the crew was probably going to die anyway from disease and scurvy.
Yeah.
Right.
And then everyone stands around in the Navy looking like shocked Pikachu when when everyone dies from scurvy.
Right. You're like,
And it's so weird because there was a period where we didn't know why, but we understood that like lemon juice and all these like citrusy things and fresh vegetables, that's how you cure scurvy. And then we forgot it, and then we remembered it.
wait,
right?
But they also knew about the fresh meat and the livers and all that, or did they not?
No, they just, I mean, it was like for at least white people, Western white people, it was, we kind of figured it out. And then, but that was too expensive. So like we stopped doing it. And then we had bad scurvy again. It's so frustrating when you see the ebb and flow of how we treated scurvy in white society. Because like, for example, you know, the Chinese, like they would take pickled vegetables, all these manner of things, but they also weren't doing the kind of transoceanic voyages like white people were doing.
Right.
Like we were the assholes who were like, but what if we ran around the Cape of Good Horn? And the Chinese were just like, well, thanks for doing all the legwork for us. Have some ceramics. You seem to really like these. In fact, you keep trying to knock them off, but you don't know how to make them right. Like we did all the suffering and legwork of transporting goods and people, you know, so you can just sit at home.
I mean, you know, like I genuinely think that historically white people have a huge problem with actually sharing knowledge amongst themselves, because it's not just a scurvy problem. Like this happens on a regular basis with normal everyday things that you think would like take care of yourself. It's like society hits a certain point. We forget why we do something. We're like, that's weird. I don't need to do that. And then suddenly you're like, but now I'm going to die. Like not having, you know, your toilet so close to your drinking water, for example, which they forgot in Britain that like, oh, right, you get dysentery when that happens.
I don't think we truly, like, we disdain the poor in our society and treat poverty as an issue of like morality. Like you are not a moral person and therefore you're poor, you're lazy, you're, you know, fill in the blank, like, which is not the truth.
Right.
Like poverty is a systemic
Which has nothing
issue.
to do
To be
with
clear.
yeah.
Yes. But I think we do not comprehend how much worse the poor were treated in the past. Like how much they were truly seen as a lesser being for being poor and for starving and for having poor diets and for dying in droves. You know, scurvy tended to kill able seamen far quicker than it did the officers because the officers brought on better food for themselves. And instead of thinking, I wonder if it's the diet, everyone just assumed it was because, well, they're poor and they're from ghettos and other bad places and they're bad people. So they die faster. Because good Christian living is how you stay alive.
Well, and also you are alive because you are good, right? If you die, you must have been a terrible person, which is absolutely not how that works.
Going to flip every table over Calvinism, I swear to God.
But I know. But this has been a beautiful tangent. We need to return to the episode. So
I was going to say,
the
the instant you
mutiny
said Calvinism, I was like, and that's where we don't go on that tangent. We're going to go back. We're going to go back.
Okay. Anyway,
So guns have been passed out to the people in camp. Fitzjames comes running out with you cannot, like, pointing at Lady
Fitzjames
Silence.
has tried to stop the bleed as best as he can, but, you know, there are still too many guns out of the armory. Like, this is a powder keg. We need to try to get the situation under control, and Lady Silence cannot be around here for this.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Hickey has already wormed his way back into camp because he did not stop walking.
Yes.
So we already know that there's nonsense afoot.
And the instant he gets back to camp, he puts things into motion.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, because he knows his goose is cooked.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because Crozier still doesn't buy it. Like, it's, you know, look,
So he has to pivot.
as bad like a knowledgeable person as Hickey is, like he knows he can't play Crozier. He at least knows that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's
like
we
have this
10 hours, not even.
exactly.
Yeah.
And we have this like, oh bless his heart, we have this good sir trying to talk to Lady Silence about how this is not how men act.
Again, I mean, look, he's naive. He's holding on to what he thinks is, a good, decent world, and he just needs to let it go because it never existed, and it does not exist, and it's just a fantasy. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And and even Lady Silence is like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Like walks away.
Although, can I just say how much I love Good Sir's reaction when Crozier's like, I need you to cut open Irving's stomach. And he's just like, good. Yes.
Good. Yes.
Yeah. I've been waiting to do that,
Give me
actually.
a thing to do. I love this. Especially, give me a knife. Does anyone have a knife?
Yeah.
There's something really nice about it. I don't know. It's just, it pleases me how like we're shutting this down right now. Good Sir is in this scene.
Yeah.
And of course, what do they find? Seal meat in Irving's stomach.
Yep.
They fed him. They didn't kill him. They fed him.
Now, the great thing is that they open up Irving's stomach with just surrounded by a whole bunch of people that they know they need to convince. So standing there, they've got Hodgson, Little, who are the two. And then, of course, the core crew who's already with them. So Jobson, Blanky.
Jobson's like watching like the
from the
sixes from the door. Jobson never doubted for an instant. Jobson, always have a Jobson on your team.
Oh, love him. But
It's like a Samwise Gamgee. Always have a Jobson.
But they get Little and they get Hodgson pretty immediately. Like Hodgson is shocked and agrees to go and find men that they can trust and arrest Hickey. Actually, Little is the one who suggests that they don't use the Marines and admits that Tozer is the one who armed Tozer.
Right, because that's a whole other part of it. Edward Little was a lieutenant. He should have had the authority to shut it down, and Tozer intimidated him into not, and Little tried to cover his butt by saying, no, we heard things, and I gave the order. He did not give the order. He acquiesced. He just gave up.
Yeah.
Can
I tell you? Okay, so it's fast forwarding very quickly. Francis is like, go find them. And actually, in the episode, the beats of this section of the episode happen at an extremely fast pace. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I actually really like it. I think it gives it a sense of urgency and how quickly things are progressing towards the end here at this camp. But, Francis gives his marching orders. Everyone's off to go and arrest Tozer and Hickey, to guard the armory, find the carpenters, build the gallows.
Yes. No, I love it. I love it when Crozier's like, yeah, and get the carpenters, we need wood.
Yeah.
We don't have enough wood for a coffin. It's for a gallows.
It's for a gallows. And they're going to disarm everyone except the officers, right? But it goes basically from there to Jobson holding Hickey in a tent. And my heart sank. I was like, Jobson's going to die. Jobson's going to die right here. Like, how easy would it be for Hickey to hop up and like that's super wild stabby move and just like run, But that's not what happens.
No, I do love.
The first time I saw it, I was also nervous about that.
I was like, Jobson, no! And he's got like that really long gun pointed at Hickey, and he's talking about how every single one of my meals started with a gun because he grew up hunting, right? And I'm like, that's a really long gun. If Hickey runs at you really quickly, the gun is useless. Actually,
I know. But I'm here for living with Thomas Jobson's secret badass the whole time, very Alfred Pennyworth happening right now.
Yeah, I know. That's what it is. That's who he reminds me of. It's literally just like, and he's just Crozier's Batman's Alfred. That's who he is.
Where's that fan fiction AU? The Gotham City Terror A.
Look, if you cannot give me my dinghy, give me my nonsense comic book.
Which basically brings us to the court-martial and the gallows. The one very crucial piece of information we haven't mentioned yet is Dear Collins.
Oh, Collins. Collins is losing it, but Collins has also gotten into the cacao wine.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, he has. I love that Good Sir's the one who notices it. He picks up the Peruvian and he's like, what happened to all of this? This is some pretty strong stuff.
And Pegler, of course, is like, I haven't been prescribing that to anybody.
Cut to him tasting colors outside a tent somewhere.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so the gallows and Hickey and Tozer. Is it Tozer or Tozier? I can't.
Tozer.
Is it a zer or a
I don't actually know.
You know what? I think we
whatever
go with
you
God
feel
on
in the
It's
moment.
Whatever
Okay.
you're feeling, you just go with God.
I'm going to keep using them interchangeably. I'm sorry, listeners. But Hickey and Tozier are brought to the gallows, and they're being marched slowly forward, as Little is announcing that they've been formally charged due to the amount of evidence they've collected against them. And all of the men are standing around awaiting, I suppose, the execution.
And of course, Francis gives his rundown of what has happened here and why they are going to kill these two men. Excellent speech, 10-10. I think you really nailed it. Unfortunately, why would you let Hickey have final words?
That was my exact question.
It's like, this is respectability politics all over again. This is like, the paradox of tolerance, right? No. You don't let him speak. He has not earned the right to speak. He's a terrible person, and he's only going to make things worse.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let Nazis into your bar. Don't let Hickey open his mouth.
Right. And this is what I was trying to say earlier. Like, listen, Hickey doesn't actually have a lot to say. Like, Francis gives this big, long speech about all of the evidence that they've gathered against Hickey, about what they found in Irving's stomach, and then he does sort of clever things where he points out to all of the men standing around, like, y'all weren't all included in Hickey's plan. Like, Hickey was planning on abandoning the vast majority of you and letting you die. And even that like little party of people that Hickey was going to take with him, Francis is like basically attempts to convince them that Hickey was going to use them and discard them when they cease to be useful to him. Which
Exactly.
I don't know how convincing that is to Hickey's right-hand men, but right?
Well, again, like, it's like a cult of personality, and you're desperate and you're starving, and you've been in this cult, you've been in this, secret society for so long. It's like when you try to convince somebody who's like poisoned by Fox News, like you do understand those are lies, right? And you give them all the evidence, or somebody who's like a doomsday, who follows a doomsday prophet, and then guess what? The comet that was going to kill us all passed by Earth harmlessly, and it looks like the end of times didn't happen when your prophet said it would, and they just moved the goalpost because they have invested so much belief in the thing that for it to not happen, they can't comprehend it, and they cannot live with themselves.
Yeah, the sunk cost fallacy,
After all of that, though, the only thing that Hickey has to say is like, he's lying.
I know, that's all.
He's obviously lying, and he's lied before, and then tries to bring up the resignation letter as if... Well, actually, I'm surprised that he didn't bring up something like poisoning, right? Like, why wouldn't he say, like, dude, Crozier was lying to you about the fact that you were slowly being poisoned by your food for months, and get Diggle to stand up and back up the story, right?
Yeah.
Like, why did he go to the resignation letter?
I wonder if he didn't talk about the poison because technically they're still taking cans with them when they leave for their mutiny.
Mm-hmm.
They're packing food.
Right.
And they have to take cans. So I wonder if he's just like, well,
like there's literally nothing else for you to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, all you can do, again, like, this is why Crozier didn't talk about it with the men en masse, because
There's nothing else
he
to be
didn't
done.
want to incite a panic. And exactly, what else are you going to eat? You have to eat something. So I do wonder if he's just like, I'm not going to talk about that because that's too much.
Right.
Because it is too much. It's like, well, okay, so your choices are starve. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just just real quick, I do love that I mean, again, the idiocy of like, but we have to be fair and we have to let him talk. I do think I love Crozier's face when he's like, and he was going to leave you. He was going to abandon us and go home. And I'm sitting here like, you were on the pack.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like he was like leaving y'all at a bar with the bill.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like, he just didn't want to be in charge anymore because he didn't agree with the decisions being made. That's what the
Also,
resignation letter was.
Very pointedly laying on the thickest bad Irish accent possible.
Oh.
It's so awful. It's so
as
bad.
he continues. It's like, oh, okay, and now you had to go and make it racist. Well done. Well done.
Oh, man. Now, we will never find out whether Crozier would have been able to crush this little mutiny because, unfortunately, as Hickey is talking, everyone is interrupted by laughter.
Yeah. By a laughing, stoned Collins.
Yeah.
Who stumbles in from the fog.
Yep.
And Crozier, I think it's Crozier that's just like, Good Sir runs over to him. But I think it is Crozier that's like, Collins, are you, like, what's up, man?
You good?
And then suddenly, lumbering out of the fog, here comes the Toonbach.
The Toonbach! And it
Right
just
behind him.
wipes them out, blows through the camp. It's pulling people out of tents. It's tearing through flesh. I mean, it is bad. Now, it doesn't appear to me anyway, that the Toonbach is being very selective about who it's eating and who it's not eating and who it's attacking and who it isn't, right? And some people, I mean, listen, like, do some people in this crew have plot armor at this point? Yes. And those are people like Crozier, like Fitzjames. But I was genuinely worried for Blanky for a second there because they have this little moment where Blanky is like trying to run as fast as everyone else and his prosthetic leg is slowing him down because he's running on like little tiny rocks with this prosthetic leg. And I'm like, no! But the Toonbach just blows right past him. It straight goes around him and into this other crowd of men. And it's just like, tearing people apart. It's awful.
Which also, God bless Blanky for being like, well, I'm not as fast, so I guess give me a gun.
Well, that's my favorite thing because, our secret Alfred over there, Jobson, is like, let me at him. And he's got his gun. He's like, you go for cover. And Blanky's like, nope, I'm coming with you.
Yeah, right? I love that.
Like these great little buddy moments.
And then Jackson Fitzjames in particular, he's not doing well. His wounds are reopening. He kind of lost control of the camp when he was trying to deal with his nonsense. But my God, you have a problem barreling at your people trying to eat them. He's on it. He's on it. He runs to the armory. He opens it up. He takes out a Congreve rocket.
Yes.
And he is ready. He has them stacked and he is ready to shoot at the Toonbach. And it is so good.
So good. What if I went and grabbed literally the most powerful weapon we have in our camp? Like, why wouldn't you do that? It's just so logical. Fitzjames.
Like he's out there with a sulfur match, a Lucifer in his teeth, ready to light them. And he's like, he's doing the Mulan thing where he's like firing them and trying to aim them at
It's so good.
And
he gets one in its shoulder.
Yep.
And it stumbles, It's not nearly as injured as Blanky was able to get it, I think, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, Blanky had oil and fire on him and then also a cannon.
Yeah, fair.
Cannonball, Congreve rocket,
6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Meanwhile, Francis and Little are running around, still trying to shut this mutiny down. Because in the midst of the chaos, Hickey, has a one-track mind, and he's like, we've got a plan and we're sticking to it. And so Hickey's men start scuttling around camp, gathering all of the supplies, the weapons, this, that, getting it all into one of those little boats so they can skedaddle. And unfortunately, they're successful.
Yeah. And also, there is a brief moment where we see Good Sir trying to hide.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we will find out he was not very successful.
Well,
because they're not just taking
all,
supplies, they're taking people.
He went and hid in his own tent.
I know.
Sir, please.
Good sir.
There are
so
many tents. If you know that people are looking for you, why would you hide in the tent with your name on it?
You need to go find Jobson and hide behind Jobson.
Come on. Like, I didn't even show me that he got taken. I just assumed that he got taken because he went to hide in the medical tent.
And also, like... I'm actually, I don't remember if we find out in the next episode, but the lead up to this plan was also not only to take supplies, but Hickey gave the order specifically to collect charts that are useful to us and burn all the others.
Yep.
So nobody but us has a chance.
Oh yeah, we're salting the earth here.
Like, what?
Mm-hmm. Just evil, honestly.
Like, that's where his people should have been like, are we sure that's necessary? But again, they're in the thrall of Hickey, and they have made their choice, foolishly so, and now they're really in it. Now they're on the Team Mutiny.
Team Mutiny.
I hope you enjoy eating each other.
You know, that's honestly right about the end of the episode, right? Like, Francis fires off his rockets. It's pretty awesome. The last thing we get is poor Collins, quite honestly, who up until this point was just sort of wandering aimlessly around the camp, still extremely high, out of his mind. And he's finally eaten by the Toonbuck, and it's pretty grisly, you know?
And it's also implied that we finally see that the Toonbuck might actually also eat your soul.
Yeah, because we kind of see his soul like leaving his body a bit as he's passing into Earth.
But I mean, between the fire and the cannon and the Congreve rocket and now the cocaine, Toonbuck's looking pretty rough. He's really looking rough.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's also one of the things I really like about having, you know, and it's like, you know, yes, he kind of doesn't necessarily discern who he takes. I think he has more of a taste for people who have lost hope or who are, you know, more inclined to be as little human as possible. But you know, if that was true at this point, we'd have a bunch of mutineers down his gullet also. So
yeah, right.
But like his physical appearance does seem, and not just appearance, right? Like, the more he gets shot, the more he gets injured, the more they try and fight against him. You can just see the wear and tear on him. And it's almost like as the men start turning on each other or start starving or just get sick, the more the Toonbuck also suffers. And I like that, like, the more men become monstrous, the more the monster looks like a monster, you know?
Yeah.
I think we're at one more things.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my God.
See?
We're just barely over an hour.
I told you this, unless your one more thing is about to be a 15-minute long one more thing, Nella. I was like, I feel like this is the episode where we come in at under 120. Nella, are we coming in at under 120?
I, at this time, do not have a one more thing.
Oh
my goodness.
What do we do?
Well, mine is sort of funny.
Okay.
So mine is sort of funny. I was debating if I was going to talk about this here or if I was going to save it for the wrap up, but I thought it was too funny and we needed a little more levity for for kind of how serious and how awful this episode ends. We just ramp up towards the end at this point. You know, our foot's on the gas. It's 100 miles an hour. So I thought I would bring this up here. And to tell this story, I have to tell this other story. So Nella, my beautiful wife Nella, enjoys watching veterinary shows. And recently, we've been watching a show on Disney Plus that's streaming on Disney Plus called Critter Fixers.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Now it's these two beautiful black Georgian men who run this veterinary clinic that handles everything. Like they
take
handle
care of
your dog and
everything.
cat, but they handle your goose and your goat and your snake and your lizard and all kinds of everything you could possibly find in Georgia.
And we've been making our own fun imagining how they would react to the Toonbuck showing up to their practice, just being like, what's wrong with this baby right now?
Yes, because that's the other thing as well.
Every animal is
that
baby.
comes in,
So like
every animal that comes in is
I
baby.
can hear them being like, who hurt this baby? I'm
Yeah.
seeing fire damage. I am seeing someone shot at this baby with a cannon. And also, it looks like a rocket. And I think this baby has gotten itself into cocaine. Like, who has been hurting this baby?
The more the Toonbuck gets hurt, the more we will just turn to each other and be like, the prognosis on this baby is very guarded.
But we will do everything we can to save this baby.
To save this baby. And I just thought I would share that with the public, which, by the way, Critter Fixers is great. It's streaming on Disney Plus. Highly recommend.
Yeah.
If you are distressed by vet shows and by animals in pain or of
Yes.
depictions of animal surgery, pass it. But if you are okay with that, I love them so much.
There is definitely, like, I know we try to have a tag on this show. There is definitely some body horror because vet show, and they show the operations. They have conversations with the vet while they're actually working on the animals. So if that distresses you, maybe give it a pass. But if you're okay with that, it is a delight in these our trying times.
Yes.
I don't know if I really have a one more thing, but quite related to this episode, but why don't I comment on that briefly and say that as we're nearing the end here, I've been thinking more and more about how this, not how this is going to end, because I know that everyone is going to die, right?
Right.
But how that is going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. And I've been thinking about how I know that this is a horror movie, not a horror movie, but it's a horror show. Right? And the Toonbuck is the monster. But thus far, I am very definitively not cheering against the monster. In fact, I really desperately hope that this Toonbuck does in fact survive. So don't tell me whether the Toonbuck survives or dies. But when I saw like Action Jackson with his rocket, I was like, listen, I want him to use that to get it away from camp. Because I don't like that all of these men are being ripped to shreds. That's not good. But I would have been genuinely sad if the rocket had hit it in the face and it was over.
Danielle, I can only tell you that this baby's prognosis is guarded.
Yeah, guarded. I'm like, I can't be hopeful. I can't be that hopeful because I'm pretty sure, again, everyone is going to die.
Does it make you feel better if I tell you it is unkillable in the book?
I'm like, I don't want it to die. I want it to just rid its land of this, however you want to refer to them.
Interlopers.
Of the interlopers. Exactly. and then just thrive.
Oh no!
Right?
I will say I'm not going to comment on whether or not blah 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 blah. I will say by the end of the show though, I felt very Team Toonbuck. Like from this episode on, I was like, I am Team Toonbuck, man. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think to that note, I think it's because we do see the Toonbuck take on wear and tear and get injured.
Yeah,
and it's no longer just like this horrifying monster that's unstoppable, like it's Freddy or fill in the blank here.
Mm-hmm.
But like this is a supernatural creature, but a supernatural creature that can be hurt.
Right.
It can be killed, possibly killed. And I think you start to think about, get unsettled because how many large apex predators, like polar bears, right? Polar bears are terrifying. But there is something horrifying about seeing a starving polar bear out in the wilds where there's no ice and they cannot find food. And when you see this large, majestic, terrifying creature unable to fend for itself, you feel that guilt and that horror at it. And the show in making the Toonbuck more of an animal than just this vengeful spirit, I think forces the audience to feel that discomfort between I would be terrified to meet this versus, but I don't want it to be
No, to-
gone.
to
I don't want
sympathize,
I don't
empathize
want it
with
to
it, yeah.
disappear from the world, right?
Yeah.
All right, we better wrap this up because now it's like 1:13 on my timer.
I'm
So
like, there we go. That was my one more thing. And there, you tacked on, and now you had one more thing. Okay, so with that, listeners, we would love to hear from you. Please check us out at Binge O'Clock Pod on Twitter and Facebook, where you can answer the question: the Toonbach attacked, and you reach to the right. What is your weapon? You can also email us at bingeoclockpod@gmail.com. And don't forget, we have a Patreon. Find us at patreon.com/bachpod.
That's right. And tell your friends, tell your family, tell your loved ones, tell the live lobsters in your life about Binge O'Clock, and we will see you next time.
So mine is going to be my almost finished instant cold brew with a giant scoop of vanilla ice cream in it.
Yum.
Because it is almost 10 to 10 p.m. And I don't fear God. God should fear me when it comes to caffeine. So, yeah.
There you go. Okay, well, to my right, because I still record inside of my closet, listeners, I have just an entire row, just piles of clothing. So, I guess actually what I could do is take the piles of clothing and like toss them on the Toonbox face and just hope that it's like tangled and temporarily blinded, and then I can just dip.
And just run.
Yeah,
I
that's the hope.
I have a cell phone charger, like a portable cell phone charger. So I guess I have the most weapony thing.
Definitely.
But we just talked about how we don't want to hurt it, and I'm just like, oh, but I don't want to hurt it. I offered to charge the Toonbox phone.